Liang is Professor of Economics at Willamette University. Professor, welcome. How is this visit expected to improve trade between Cambodia and China?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Jamie. So I think this is a very significant trip, as we know that China has been Cambodia's largest trade partner. Last year, the two-way trade reached $15 billion, but of course with a very significant trade surplus on China's side. So as you just reported and you talked about, that Cambodia is now in a very tricky position, as many of the Southeast Asian countries, where there's a 49% of tariff rate earlier was imposed by the United States. Now, of course, it's with a 90-day pause. But pause is a pause, so the future is still very uncertain. So I think this trip is really going to help to strengthen the trade relationships between these two countries. So I think China will continue to export some of the very essential, machineries, raw materials for the industrialization for Cambodia. But at the same time, I think China will open up the markets more to import from Cambodia, when it comes to agricultural products, jewelries, and many other products, I think are in the plan. And also more cooperation on infrastructure, which I think are also very essential for Cambodia's economic development.
You described Cambodia as in a rather tricky position. That's something of an understatement, perhaps, in the middle of a global trade war. What about the timing of this visit? What should we make of it?
Right. So I think you're absolutely right. It is an understatement. It's such an uncertain, volatile times, and we know that many of the countries do rely on the integration into the global market, being very small size, very resources constrained domestically. But of course, Trump is, adamant in imposing tariffs and waging this trade war. So I think countries would have to find alternatives. On the one hand, smaller countries may have to negotiate with the United States, which I think this is why China is saying, we are working together with you. We wanted to have a collective response to enhance our bargaining power. And I think the ASEAN countries can definitely do a better job on that. On the other hand, I think China is also trying to forge these sort of regional integration in a more forceful manner, right? Because China and other countries, South Korea and Japan, and also ASEAN countries have already penned the RCEP. And so the next step is really to improve the regional trade integration. So I think this would really help countries like Cambodia to diversify their export, destinations, and also improve their trade competitiveness.
Diversifying is one thing, but many countries, for obvious reasons, will be considering pivoting away from exporting to the United States, given these punitive tariffs. Do you think that's likely to be a temporary pivot, or will it be a permanent pivot away from U.S. markets?
I think that's a great question. I think what these countries are, sort of thinking about is that even this tariff is, going from temporary to permanent. There's still so much uncertainty, right? So even if this tariff truce, right, may be extended in the future, but I think that really creates a lot of uncertainty. And also the U.S. is essentially undermining, its own credibility as a trade partner in this sort of so-called rule-based trading system. So I think either way, even if Trump tomorrow says we are going to extend the pause, we're going to make it permanent. Now, Cambodia is going to only have 10% of tariff. I think that was still not going to ease the doubt and anxiety of the countries, because we know that Donald Trump, is being unpredictable, and so I think either way, countries will continue to diversify and, like you said, pivot away from the United States, because that is clearly Trump's choice, right? He does want to decouple, I think, from the major trading system that we're seeing, in the past 80 years, and so I think countries are prepared for that.
Liang, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the program. Liang, Professor of Economics at Willamette University.
Thank you for having me.